Ladies and gentlemen, despite outstanding public demand, we are nonetheless going to continue broadcasting the Coronavirus Chronicles. Thank you. Herewith, the second outbreak. Tuesday, the 14th of April, 1606 hours. Clouding my world view. Dear patients, as we all sit in the waiting room, waiting for the little light to come on for the end of lockdown, I am looking forward, if that's the right word, to seeing my ophthalmic surgeon, who is probably emptying bedpans in A&E right now. I have a cataract in my left eye, diagnosed last July by my optician. There was a certain amount of argy-bargy about whether my Hereford-based optician or my Worcester-based general practitioner had to write the referral letter, not helped by the almost simultaneous arrival of appointment letters from hospitals in both counties, inviting me for a pre-op assessment on or around December 2019. I opted for the first because, well, its appointment was 3 weeks later. And I kind of declined the second because, well, you see, my name is Love, and this one was addressed to a Mr. Loeb. I mean, for God's sake, this is my eyesight we're talking about. I have a unilateral capsular cataract of the left eye, which is a common complication, indeed, of cataract surgery itself. And I have had cataract surgery, just not in my left eye. I had a cataract up in my right eye some years ago after a detached retina. You see, a cataract is also a complication of a detached retina. Apparently, my eyes are unusually complicated. Now, a detached retina is not just insouciant or indifferent. In fact, everything goes black when you close the other eye. It's a bit like being very, very drunk, but without the dizziness and vomiting. Now, the surgical correction is, and passengers of a nervous disposition will find a sick bag in the compartment seat pocket in front of you. The surgical correction is, get this, to fill the eye with gas under pressure and lie down in a darkened room for a week. You see, it turns out that layers of cells just love to stick to flat surfaces, because that's how we turn from a single cell into the amazing collection of folded membranes that is a human being. Now, after about a week, you're allowed to sit up and watch TV, but absolutely no bungee jumping. Regular use of a pneumatic hammer, not recommended. It may be what my mother was thinking about when she told me, age 12, that sex would make me go blind. Maybe she was right, and it's just taking a lot longer than expected. Now, you may need to reach into the seat pocket for that sick bag again. You see, normally your eye is full of a fluid called aqueous humour, which paradoxically is not even faintly amusing. Now, this is drained out of the eye, and no, I don't know. I couldn't see what the surgeon was doing, now could I? Anyway, it's drained out of the eye to make room for the gas. The gas itself slowly diffuses back out of the eye, which makes more liquid aqueous humour to replace it. A week after the operation, someone takes the dressing off the affected eye, and you find out if your job as a precision watchmaker is secure, or if your future on stage will be mostly playing pirates. I blinked, and the room came into focus. Magic. Then I turned my head, and a wavy line appeared in my field of vision. The wavy line was a meniscus of fluid inside the eye. I watched the Christmas Day movie with the waterline still about halfway up. Every time my head moved, the T-Rex in Jurassic Park wobbled. Best Christmas present ever. Now, given that my cataract is not getting better, I am beginning to move around with a degree of care. This is partly because when washing the car, I've noticed a growing collection of fur, feather, dog leads, and pram parts trapped underneath the front bumper. But mostly because if I move very, very slowly or sit completely still, my wife is less inclined to think of more jobs to do around the house. You see, like T-Rex, her vision is motion-based. Saturday the 19th of April, 13:23 hours. Preaching to the Syro-converted. Dearly beloved, pray be seated. Today's reading is from St. Paul's letter to Network Rail Customer Services, Book 12,013, Chapter 198, verses 437 to 2045. As you will know from previous sermons, my lockdown involves sleeping in late, light lunch, ineffectual pottering in the garden for up to an hour at a time, retreat to the TV lounge, a pre-prandial glass of Italian fizz, spot of dinner, some unoaked chili and red, little ripe French cheese, some LBV port, piece of chocolate, probably from Ecuador, and a very fine Guatemalan coffee, whilst dozing off to pre-recorded Freesat or Amazon Prime or Netflix, thence to bed to fall asleep face down, dribbling on my Kindle. And no, that is not a euphemism. Of course, it's not all fun. You'll see, Friday evening, each week at about midnight, I have to confront a knotty problem. Just how am I going to relax this weekend? Well, every dog has his day, and this is clearly mine. Cometh the hour, I say, kippeth the man. Of course, I am fortunate to have been born when I was, just before opening time, I think. No, I mean, I've lived in an age of spectacular technological revolution, and I don't just mean an Amazon Fire Stick in every room. Over half the fund of human knowledge has been generated in just the past 50 years, and almost all of it is displayed on the coffee menu boards at Starbucks. It's also been a time of unprecedented wealth. I have a vivid imagination, so I've always had a very rich inner life, which is just as well because, frankly, my outer life has frequently had the arse hanging out of its trousers. I left home at 17 and I didn't get around to buying a place of my own for 15 years, on which I promptly lost 40% at a time when mortgage rates were well north of 14%. I fractured my skull 3 times, which probably explains quite a lot. I nearly died of food poisoning at age 21 and almost lost my foot in a motorcycle accident a year later. My first marriage imploded after just 90 days. I think the warranty had expired. And I rendered myself homeless and almost bankrupt in simply record time. And until the mid-50s, I had flyaway hair, regardless of which hairspray or gel I tried. And I'm telling you, it's all been very expensive. I mean, have you seen the sort of prices that Vidal Sassoon charges? Well, now, I did have one uncommon piece of luck, which was meeting my new current second wife, Lorraine. Now, I'm a Marmite sort of person, good with stews, soups and gravy, but the world remains divided. On the other hand, I only ever heard one person say a bad word about Lorraine, and frankly, if they'd had one brain cell less, well, they'd have been photosynthesizing. I need not dwell on Lorraine's many virtues. She is unerringly kind, warm, modest and sociable. Not to mention stylish and immaculately presented. I mean, at best, I look like a rather badly ironed extra from an Agatha Christie garden party whodunit. In fact, as I type this, she looks très chic in her batwing sleeve jumper, albeit not the most politically correct garment in the current pandemic. Oh yes, I have seen the pitying glances she gets when we meet strangers, and I've heard the unspoken, well, she's charming, but what did she do to deserve him? Now, it's all down to the misinterpretation of the words, I do. Now, as far as I can recall, and I was very, very drunk, it was an interrogative, a question with a rising inflection and more than tinged with a hint of surprise. I do? Now, all the other witnesses insist it was a statement and implied tacit consent. Okay, well, that bit's not really true. I made that up. I do that sort of thing. You may have noticed. Actually, it puzzled me too, until recently, when we took a personality test online. I had to ask for a retest when the first result came up, 404, personality not found. Turns out, Lorraine and I actually have identical personalities. Apparently, we are life's advocates and diplomats. Well, the site designers were clearly off their faces when they designed that bit of the algorithm, but who knew that all this time she was just as irritating, self-opinionated and completely tactless. I really have no idea how many copies of these Coronavirus Chronicles are ever read or how many default to spam, but I am always heartened by one faithful respondent who unwittingly makes me smile whenever they reply, irrespective of what they write, because every one of their emails is thoughtfully, if somewhat automatically, postscripted, virus-free. Well, I'm not sure of much, but I can say with absolute confidence that after all my pretense at tidying the garage, it now looks an absolute picture. I'm thinking Edward Munch's The Scream. Yes, well, and here lesseneth the ending. Wednesday, the 22nd of April, 15:15 hours. Health and safe tea. Fellow sufferers, I thought now would be a good time to conduct a general audit of my health from top to bottom, if indeed not a bit further down. Hard to believe, I know, but in my youth I was olive-skinned and raven-haired. I looked distinctly Southern European. In my 20s, in fashionable Kensington and Chelsea, I had to take great care never to dress in black trousers or a white shirt when dining out, or without fail. On my return from the washroom, someone would invariably greet me with, "Oi, garçon," complain that their starters were late and insist on another bottle of Chablis. Mind you, the tips came in jolly handy. Now, my skin still has something in common with Olive's. It's quite badly pitted. I have 3 skull fracture scars, any number of regrown fingernails, a garden fork-sized hole in my right foot. I have scaly skin on the web between my thumb and forefinger, courtesy of a decade of wearing nitrile gloves in infection-controlled environments. My hair is no longer glossy and black, more emulsioned with grey. And like me, showing an unhealthy enthusiasm for retiring early. Now, I was a bright, all right, I was a really very, very annoying child. But my grades crashed when I was about 8. One of my teachers thought I might be having a little difficulty reading the writing on the blackboard. Actually, I couldn't see the blackboard at all. And so between the myopia, the astigmatism, residual damage in this eye from a detached retina, and the unresolved cataract in this one, please, if I give you a funny look, don't take offence. Most everything looks funny to me already. My hearing, alas, is not what it was. I said my hearing is not what... I think it's half... Oh, never mind. Now, at least my teeth are all my own. I have a receipt somewhere to prove it. Anyway, moving on. I had Bell's palsy a couple of years ago. One half of my face decided to go on strike, and I was able to draw without the necessity to watch women's beach volleyball. There are more than 50 causes of Bell's palsy, including an array of infections that include herpes simplex, HIV and Epstein-Barr virus, which I gather you're much more likely to catch if you don't have to watch women's beach volleyball to remember why it is you used to chase women. I think I'll go with a simple head cold as the most probable explanation. Now, Bell's palsy mostly self-corrects within about 10 days. I'm told by my doctor that the remaining asymmetry is merely subsidence. I also have a frozen shoulder, and we're not talking New Zealand lamb here either. Adhesive capsulitis is inflammatory and self-limiting, rather like the Coronavirus Chronicles. There are more than 50 causes, but fortunately for you, I have absolutely no idea what they are. The symptoms are straightforward. A shooting pain down the upper arm, particularly when you insert your arm into the sleeve of a coat, jacket or shirt. Also common with this particular ailment is inflamed toes, because you tend to drop heavy objects on your feet. Now, most right-handed people like me put a coat, jacket or shirt on right arm first, which leaves the left arm having to articulate much harder, which hurts. Now, after about a year, your brain rewires to put the affected left arm in first, which it turns out is about the exact amount of time it takes to develop a matching right-sided adhesive capsulitis. I may consider a poncho, but if you should encounter me wandering naked from the waist upwards, well, that's just the natural exhibitionist in me. It is important for us not to ignore the elephant in the room, especially when you live in a toy Wendy house like this one. They make a dreadful mess on the carpets and tend to block the doors. I refer, of course, to smoking. Only a lunatic would smoke tobacco, especially one with clinical laboratory experience. But then, well, that is the kind of lunatic I am. I remember what prompted me to take it up. It was women. I blame women, my wife in particular, for most things. As a teenager, you see, I never knew what to do with my hands when talking to attractive members of the opposite sex. Well, no, that's not entirely true. Actually, I knew exactly what to do, but it is the sort of thing that today would get you onto the sex offenders register. Now, although my palate was surprisingly unaffected by smoking, since stopping, my sense of smell has improved. And I regret to say I may need a stronger deodorant. I'm sorry, chaps. I didn't know. Not, of course, going to change anything until the end of social distancing, as I'm still mostly undetectable at 2 meters. Small mercies, eh? And yes, I've put on a stone in weight in the past month. Don't you know I've given up smoking, damn it? Now, I know women with children and men of a certain age will understand how an enlarged prostate or any similar football-sized obstruction in the pelvis can affect the hitherto mundane task of passing water. To cap it all, my right big toenail is showing definite signs of athlete's foot, fungus, which, considering my abhorrence of exercise or sport of any kind, is supremely ironic. So, here I stand, well, slouch, actually, given the bilateral adhesive capsulitis, on the borders of decrepitude, possibly certifiable, wheezing slightly, scarred, grey, crumbling, thinning, malodorous, half-blind, partially deaf, toothless, lopsided, flabby, badly dressed, leaking slightly, and beginning to go mouldy. I just hope my pre-op assessment for a cataract op doesn't result in a compulsory demolition order. When my cataract is finally treated, the surgeon will replace the furred-up natural lens with a plastic one, and there are decisions to be made. Whatever focal length the new lens will be, I'm going to absolutely insist on it being rose-tinted. Well, good God. I say, there's something seriously wrong with this glass.